Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the this month's version of the Minneapolis Northwestern N-Scale Model Railroad Monthly Video Journal. You can see I started out here in 2015 with a little model of the layout. Worked pretty hard on that to try to get all the design elements figured out. Work commenced in 2015 on this layout. There's the empty room. There's the corner here where the bridge deck eventually went. And with the help of my good friend Dwayne, we started construction on the layout by about, say February. I was laying out paper drawings to figure out where I wanted my tracks and all the yards. That's the beginning of South Yard. You can see pieces of the upper deck going in. And some days were better than others. Didn't take too long though before I started laying track. You can see tacking down cork road bed, and track laying began probably, I don't know, somewhere February, maybe March. And another messy day. Also started working on plans for the helix on the other side of the room. There's a template I made for the helix. Track was going down well in the south yard. The three main lines that run through the middle of the layout there. Helix continued to develop. My good friend there tried to, he came up with a good tool for making the helix, a little jig that helped keep all the parts together in a nice way. And it wasn't long before all those parts were coming over to the layout and starting to be installed. And the bridge deck was starting to come together nicely. Turned out I had to do a little rework on that. It wasn't until August that I had my little golden spike ceremony. I finally finished the main line on one level. Started finally running trains in August of 2015. Always fun to get that first loop finished where you can actually run something all the way around the room. Soon after, I got the flour mill built. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with that, get that situated there. Work continued on the helix. Got more track, more loops on the helix, about 6 loops on that thing to begin to finally get it built up. It's about a 4 by 7 foot dimension on the helix. The bridge deck, actually had to kind of rebuild that a little bit because I wanted to get some access space behind there. So I kind of took it out and redid it a little bit, redesigned it, and allows me some access back there along the wall to crawl around back there so I can pop my head up around the other side of the layout. Helix continued to grow. More and more loops done on the helix. Cork road bed going down, the tracks going down. And the bridge deck's coming back together. Some of those foam contours taking shape. And the bridge came out several times, in and out several times. I made some little footings for the trestles. It all came out to glue it all back together. And more work on the helix. Oh, who's that guy? Well, starting in 2016, started doing some actual scenery all around the bridge deck. This is the first part of the layout that got some scenery. I went through about 2 bags of 25-pound bags of plaster to do all the work there. Combination of rock molds and carving. Started putting in a backdrop around the helix. The bridge deck starting to come together more. Eventually started planting trees. One thing I'd like to maybe redo this area again, because I don't think I quite caught the right colors for fall here. Fall's a real subtle thing to capture correctly, and it's a little too splashy here. I might try to redo this eventually, but it was my first attempt at fall colors. Moved on to the coal mine near the bridge there. Started getting scenery done in that area. Down at the other end near the wall, started filling in gaps there. This is just before the backdrop was painted and reinserted in front of the helix. It makes much better appearance there to have that backdrop painted. Hides the helix. Scenery started filling in around the coal mine. And pretty soon I was ready to put the upper deck on that part of the layout. Started, my friend Dwayne came back to help me again. We put in a great big 2x4 that stretched the length of the room, so we wouldn't have any obstruction for the lower deck. Started putting some lights under there, and it looks very nice now. And on the other side of the layout, oh my, we're starting to get into some more dirty work here, trying to get the boulevards all sanded down. Little engine facility here. I tried to get that looking nice, and you can see all the roads in here going in. A little bridge at the end of what's now Industrial Boulevard, going off the end of the layout, and a big mess. I always dreaded doing these projects because they were so messy. Lights started going in. Made my own little handmade lights. Those started going in. Ooh, I was so excited to see some lights on my layout that actually worked. Started in South Yard. Yeah, more work back on the Industrial Boulevard, trying to fill in all the road work here. I think I kind of made a mistake using joint compound and all that stuff. I thought it'd be easier to work with, but it turned out to be kind of messy and a little pesky. More lights in the yard. A little bridge project. Adding lights to that as well. Lights near the coal mine, and a little hilltop farm in the corner that finished out the scenery nicely on the right side of the layout. And by the time 2017 came around, I was still working on the Industrial Boulevard and the areas around the station. Finally getting that in order. Lots of sanding to get that far. What a mess. Scenic details started to fill in the scene very nicely. Always fun to see some finished scenery. More mess. Trees were added in here. Started adding more lights too. You'll see some lights here in a minute. So this scene came together very nicely. I've been adding more and more details to it. More lights for the area here. Gradually adding more lights. Nice to see all these scenes start coming to life. And I started filling in the area across the road from the station, area around the flour mill. Still working on kind of in the industrial district now. More lights. I was so excited to see more lights coming on. Little bridge that I made on the industrial lead goes into the industrial district. Cheapy looking little bridge, but it doesn't look too bad when you don't look too close. And more work started in the industrial district, trying to fill in all this spot. A lot of this area was paved. It took a lot of sanding. Ugh, what a mess. Eventually though, I got it looking pretty good. Big paved area, all that needed to be sanded. More mess. I'm glad I'm past most of the stage here. I won't be making too many more messes. Started striping the roads. I wish I'd used paint pens instead of just paint, but this turned out okay, I guess. Buildings and details starting to fill in on the industrial district. Starting to look nice. Not so much clutter and dust. More trees pretty soon start adding lights. So it's always fun to get to this part of a project when you can see it start to finish up. Tracks going through the streets for some of the industries here. And a little above shot kind of shows some detail, the street layout and so forth. Night scene, I always like this little corner on the layout because it's got some fun details in the area. About this time I started working on the Union Station project. That I spent about a year on that on the first attempt and got disappointed with it and started over on this project. We'll talk more about the Union Station project a bit later. By 2018 I was finishing up scenery in or most of the major scenery in the industrial district, and the big paved spot underneath the consolidated shipping building. That took a while to get that straightened out. Put in a backdrop there, and that area finally started to look somewhat finished. Then I moved on to this little part on the very end of Industrial Boulevard, trying to fill in this little bridge abutment here. There's Truman wondering what's happened to the rest of the world. Truman from the Truman Show. You know, watch that movie? Anyway, there's Truman wondering what happened to the rest of the world. And the bridge abutment finished up pretty well. That was most of the scenery to be finished at the front end. In 2019, I started trying to add a few more details, some fun little billboards. Also started working on I guess I could call it a silo project, trying to figure out what to do with this area near the flour mill. I'm still not done with that area. Trying a few things here and there. Maybe not. So this continues to be a work in progress. Still trying to come up with some good ideas. However, I think I'm getting closer to what I like. I'm going to try to build some little apparatus between the silos and the buildings. In 2020 I did some paint projects, did about 3 paint projects, some locomotives. This one was a bear to work on because I had to repaint it a few times, couldn't quite get the right colors. And I started working on scenery around the engine shop. Put in a little road there. Oh, there's more about the silos again. Put in some fencing around the industrial district. Little details. Wiring for the tracks going into the engine house, the engine shed shop. A little road, service road crossing the tracks with some ties for crossings. More mess. Trying to finish up this area. Another paint project, CGW, excuse me, engines. Turned out pretty well. And about this time I started thinking about my wiring. What a mess. Who hired this guy? So, new control panel. That cleaned up a lot of things, gave me a little more control over my layout. Rewired the whole lower deck. Came up with a new control panel. Works very nicely. Took out the old control panels. Oh, what a mess. Oh my gosh. Oh, fun. Eventually though I got it organized better. There, see? That's much better, isn't it? But I'm happy with the results here. And I started adding some little signs, trying to lighten up the neighborhood a little bit. I had to do a little repair on my track inside the helix one day. I was getting some derailments in there and couldn't get the track fixed, so I just replaced it with a stretch of new track, and since then I haven't had too many troubles inside the helix. Always a fun place to work. Want the broom in here. Yep. Lately I added a little street light project, a little traffic light project. That was kind of fun to add some working traffic lights to the intersection in the middle of a layout. And they turned out well. Fun little project to add some interest to the layout there. Well, the Union Station project, I haven't worked on it a lot lately, but many of you know it's been a long project. I started working on it a long time ago, and kind of reached a point where I was very disappointed with how it had turned out. I could not get the thing to come together very well in the end. My construction method and process was just a little misguided, I think, and I ended up starting over. This is a big project. I want it to be a centerpiece of the upper deck, and I want it to look good, and I just wasn't happy with the original build. So I learned a lot on the first build. Had a lot of problems getting it to come together the way I wanted it to. Just lots of band-aids on this project, and it got to be a point where I was just I just thought, I can do better. I don't need perfection, but I can do better. So I started over, and happy to say that the rebuild is coming along much better. The biggest problem I had was joining the two wings together, and they just didn't come together very well, and it wouldn't sit flat on the table. It was real wobbly. It was just not very satisfied with it at all. So I'm very happy with the rebuild. The rebuild's coming along. This first project, this first build, I learned a lot with that. Developed a lot of little techniques. Learned what not to do. Had some mistakes along the way with this one. I ended up kind of tearing it apart and gluing it back together again, and that resulted in some pretty messy joints and crooked walls. It was just, might look nice, but it was a headache. A lot of things I didn't like about it. So this project had been going on for a long, long time. Went on for about 2 years before I finally started over. 6 months of that 2 years I didn't work on it very much, so more like 18 months I'd work on it from time to time on the weekends. So the rebuild, I'm happy to say, is coming along much better. Very happy with it. Different techniques, different design, different, almost different everything, trying to come up with some good ways to put this project together. So I'm much happier with the rebuild. We'll continue working on that, so I'll do some more updates on it later, but it's still in the works. For anybody who's been wondering about what happened to it, it's still there. Trying to finish things off here. I'm almost to a point where I can finish off all the details and start gluing the main components together again, starting to join everything together. But here you get a good overview of it. 3 concourses extending out through the back of the station. 4 tracks served below the station. So it's still there. I haven't worked on it lately, but it's coming. Well, that brings us up to today, or the present, I should say. This is where we are today. Got some trains running around the tracks here. This is my bridge deck area. First part of the layout that ever got any scenery. This is on the right side of the room. You can see my new, well, not new anymore, but recently built control panel that's been working very well. Been adding lights. I kind of redid the lighting on the layout a little bit, redid the wiring on the layout for the lights. And things are shaping up pretty well. I want to try to finish some of these projects on the lower deck so I can finally put the cap on this one and start working on the upper deck. So pretty much this whole video has been all about the lower deck. I haven't even really done much on the upper deck. Mostly what I've been doing lately is just adding some details, more lights to some of the dark areas on the layout. I've been adding some more signs, really just lots of details. A little traffic light project, add some nice interest to the layout. And hope by year's end, maybe, to have the upper deck started, or at least the lower deck finished. You see the framework above at the top of the scene there. That's where the upper deck is going to sit. That's the framework for the upper deck. So once the lower deck is done, we're going to take that clutter magnet that's over on the right side of the room and put that on the upper deck. Right now though, trains are getting up to the upper deck through the helix. See, a train has made its way up from the lower deck, and really all the upper deck is doing right now is just providing space for the trains to run up the helix and turn around and go back down. But you get an idea, kind of an idea, what it's going to be like to get the upper deck on here. That corner, by the way, is where the Union Station will be, kind of back against the windows there. So that's a look at the layout from start to present. Hope you've enjoyed the little walk through the history of the layout so far. So thanks for coming, thanks for staying, thanks for watching, and we'll check in with you next month on the Minneapolis Northwestern N-Scale Model Railroad Monthly Video Journal. So happy railroading to everyone.